has the left formed a state-sponsored insurgency network with access to government infrastructure and weapons?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, they have. Has the right.
No.
So who has the advantage in any conflict between the left and the right ideologies?
I just think the right is, I subscribe to the theory that the right, people in the right generally have more to lose. Like nobody
You're
here
not
is
wrong.
showing up to
But does that
physically
change what I'm
protest,
saying?
right? Because you have a lot to lose. We have businesses, we have family, we have children, right? Whereas the left consists more of like a lot of losers, like bottom tier people that are willing to throw themselves in danger for their
Agreed.
cause.
So who's got the advantage in a conflict?
Well, yes, maybe yes, I
depends
guess,
on what
but
kind of
like maybe I'm in my
give me an
bubble.
argument,
But,
why not?
But in during COVID, my group of people, we were like organized, if you'd call it. We shared places where to go to eat that didn't enforce mask mandates, where to get ivermectin, where to do these things, and it was a right wing sphere. Like we all came together, and maybe that's because I live in Texas, but we were organized. We didn't have like these mass underground groups and stuff.
In the Alex Preddy incident, 50 people had swarmed the agents that day. 50. What people see and what they're being told is that Preddy showed up to protest. He showed up at a protest. That's not what happened. A network of insurgents, they're armed. They have people with guns that were out patrolling. We've seen all the photos and videos. It's just that people on the right don't understand the depths of the insurgency, and they don't believe it, or they don't want to believe it. And they're also extremely arrogant, thinking, haha, we got guns, we're going to win. Communications is everything. On that day, CBP had apparently been intercepted by at least 50 different people, which is probably why the agents were freaking out and overly aggressive. Because this may have been the 7th or 8th time a group of people jumped out of their cars, standing in traffic, screaming at them. And no matter where they go, they're being stalked and followed. These people are on shifts. And, you know, it's funny because there's, I guess we'll get to a second. I'll show you this right now real quick. We'll come back to it. But Bonchi over at Red State says the quote, he had an extra mag is the right-wing version of, quote, he crossed state lines. A completely irrelevant qualifier only meant to elicit assumptions. Wrong. Now, the point here is this guy was on duty. He was on duty for a paramilitary organization whose intentions is fifth-generational warfare to resist, their word, the federal government, duly elected, dispatching law enforcement. Their intention is, quote-unquote, I'm not touching you, harassment and warfare. The goal of the left is to harass to the point where any media that emerges will be a recruiting tool. That is, get in the face of a cop, punch him in the face if you have to, start filming after he retaliates.
Well,
now, there's a question of why did Preddy show up with a 9mm with an extra magazine?
I think it's pretty normal. I carry an extra mag.
Except he had been on duty with a paramilitary group whose intention was to stalk and harass federal law enforcement operations. And a week prior, he had been physically attacked, they're reporting, CNN, by CBP and said, I thought I was going to die.
Are you making?
Didn't he had some of his ribs broken? Also.
Yeah, yes. So here's a guy who confronted ICE as part of an organized insurgent group who's confronting law enforcement for the purpose of a fifth-generational war. It's a PSYOP tactic. He gets injured, says, I'm going to die, shows up next time with an extra magazine and a 9mm.
I think it's just more simple than that. I think a lot of these people are losers. Like, what was Preddy, a divorcee, right? Like he was
divorced,
he was a low-level
kids,
loser that wanted to make a scene. You see a lot of these
But
these body cam videos where these people get
because
pulled over, and the first thing they get a speeding ticket. The first thing they do is they whip out their phone, they shove it in a cop's face and they're like, I'm streaming on Facebook. I think it's similar to that. I think that these people are just losers that want to make a scene that they hope they show up on social media.
What does that have
I
to
think
do
you're
with
right,
what we're
but
saying?
Yeah.
I just don't think that like this idea that he's part of like this huge network of really high intelligence organizations. I think he's just a loser that was carrying a gun.
That sort of makes it so that he doesn't have anything to lose. And if you have a bunch of people who don't have anything to lose, they're going to go out there and
these are dangerous people. Agree.
Right?
But see, this is what I mean. I got to be honest. This is exemplifying the blind spot of the right. The people who organized this group are not the retards on the ground getting killed. They don't want to die. They send people in their stead. It's like The Patriot. The best movie ever. When Cornwallis says to Mel Gibson's character, stop targeting my officers. Could you imagine what the battlefield would be like? Chaos? That's the way they view it. The people who are organizing these groups have OPSEC training. In that viral post, they have OPSEC hygiene operations. Now, Preddy was dumb as a box of rocks, sure, but that's what you use for a foot soldier. That guy's not gonna be organizing anything.
I'll give you an example. Like we had in Texas, we had the John Brown Gun Club, and these guys provided security for these drag shows. They would show up in all black open carrying rifles, right? One of their leaders was this Korean guy, I forget his name now, but he ended up going on. He was on these lists forever. He was always an issue. Been following him for years, right? He'd always show up to protest. He's like this 5'5" Korean kid, and he was a total loser. He'd been kicked out of the military. His parents didn't really like him. Like just total like nobody, right? Anyway, he went on to be one of the guys that was in charge of like assaulting an ICE facility. They shot at ICE officers. They eventually caught him, but like again, it's like they were organized in a Telegram group, I think is what it was.
So why is it that these groups still exist years on after all these things have happened?
I could see your argument, like we need to be more focused on getting into these groups and like because he was on these lists. He was always the FBI always says that they were on a list, but we're not.
The response is these guys are just dumb losers. We all agree. And the dumb losers are weaponized as foot soldiers by the intelligent leftists who are fomenting revolution.
I don't think, at least from what I saw, that their organization wasn't funded or organized by anybody. It was just these group of people, these losers, decided together collectively to do this. There wasn't any higher power organizing them.
Characterizing them as a group of losers, I think, is a mistake. But I think that it's also a mistake to say that the right doesn't have anything. The left is out there being activists because Donald Trump is in office. They kind of went underground when Joe Biden was in office, and they did a little bit of stuff up in the Pacific Northwest. But the right wing doesn't come out and organize because they're not activists the same way. So whereas I understand what you're saying, that these people have a network and stuff like that, I think that the reason you don't see the right's network, because there are signal chats that are a bunch of right-wing dudes. I mean, I'm very familiar with them.
I had covered from 2011 till about 2019 or so in these direct action meetings, watching these people work. I was in France at a safe house where they were manufacturing weapons for riots, and the right really does not understand. And
what would you consider like Patriot Front?
What about them?
Well, because those guys get together,
like
they train.
The feds?
Well, you call them the feds, but the guys that are in Patriot Front, like if you believe that they're not feds, they get together, they train together, they go to the gym together.
I would say
about those 3%er guys?
They're small, and my point is this group in Minnesota is networked with every other state. It is a mesh network. That's why we talk about these Antifa cells, the groups that I refer to as the tourists. How is it that we see the same left-wing activists organizing in China, Turkey, California, New York, Canada, Mexico? Well, because these people never get caught, never get arrested. Cam Higbee and more so, who are the guys that were what I'm talking about? They're finding all the paid networks.
Yeah, Cam and the guy we had on
Lance Videos.
Lance Videos.
Yeah.
And there was another person.
I don't know the other person.
Well, the point is, the high-ranking, intelligent, high-level people. First, at the highest level, you've got millionaires, billionaires, financiers, and we all know their names, running these organizations and funding these various NGOs that do this. Then you have those are the highest level guys. There are high-level people, smarter than anybody in this room, running and organizing these things, and you're never going to learn their names. They've networked interstate, and they tell people what to do. They pay for lawyers, and when Antifa, I mean, take a look at this. They've got judges. Mm-hmm. Trump can't even get Don Lemon arrested, and conservatives are like, "I'd win a civil war." You have no judges. You can't even arrest one guy. Like it is the epitome of arrogance that the right does not have a national mesh network the way the left does.
Well, it's different than the left. I think the right's. I mean, if we want to talk about networks, get a shot of that Rumble logo. Like the left. Let me explain. The left is a group of street violent thugs. Look at it. It's simple, not really highly intellectual. They're willing to throw rocks. The right are businessmen that don't want the system to burn. They build organizations like Rumble, like things legitimately. Like, where's the network? It's out in the open.
I don't know.
I'm just going to go ahead and say I think this conversation and many in the chat exemplifies the point of, I have witnessed powerful multimillionaire leftists organizing, fomenting violence, planning it. And we know what Yuri Bezmenov talked about. And it's like, no matter how many times you say the right doesn't have it, they're just like, we don't need it, and they're dumb. It's like, okay.
The thing is, though, the left is highly intellectual because they're all very educated. They all have graduate degrees in, like, Marxist theory and gender basket weaving and all the rest of it. What I keep being surprised by, and I was surprised when we looked at this Women's March virtual meetup last night, which was a training, right? They had breakout sessions, and the one that our reporter went into was talking about how to deal with hotels. And a woman from the Sunrise Movement said, we have started having workers start requesting noise demonstrations. We call them wide awakes. Start requesting wide awakes in the middle of the night. We've had reports of ICE agents leaving after our noise demonstrations. We've had multiple hotels report to us that they have quietly decided to kick ICE out because they don't want to say it publicly so they don't get backlash, but they've told us they've decided to kick ICE out. We've even had 2 hotels, we've gotten word, not from them, but through the grapevine, they specifically refused to house ICE because of our noise demonstrations. She said, it sort of comes from the logic of when ICE is here, they need places to sleep, they need places to eat, they need ways to get around. What are ways that we can physically interrupt the ways that they do that so that we can kick them out? So what she's saying is they have networks for hotels, lodging, restaurants, food service, and all the transportation.
James O'Keefe,
that's very deep in
James
there.
O'Keefe pointed out that when he would go to a hotel, employees were in these grids and would flag his information, and then all of a sudden people would swarm and start stalking him. Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there.